All right, folks, what's going on? This is the Crack House Podcast. My name is Mike O'Sullivan. Joining me, as always, my buddy Chris Muscalino. What's up, my man?
Mike, what's good, man? How's your weekend so far?
So far, so good. I don't know. I'm trying to grow my hair out, and it's taking
God,
forever in the back.
God bless you and your dad and the good genes, man. I got the, I
Oh, it's
got the,
starting. The only thing losing weight is my hair. My hair is definitely thinning. If I get a short haircut, it looks bad. But
I got the Maltese curse, my friend. The bald head.
see, no, you know what though? But my Maltese grandfather died with a full head of hair. He had a full,
Well, yeah,
and
that disputes my theory.
my uncle my uncle Joe passed away a few years ago. Full head of hair. I mean, he
Yeah,
had a
okay.
little bit of it was starting. I mean, he was in his early 80s, I think, when he died.
Your dad had a good head of hair.
Yeah, he still got. It's starting to go now, but yeah, I'm trying to grow I want the back coming in. I'm trying to get a Snake Plissken mullet going, and it's
like
taking
uh
forever.
like like Bono from circa U2 in the 1980s.
Yeah, like a 1984 Bono,
Nice.
maybe a Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon 2. I don't know. Something.
I was at a reunion today for my fraternity Pi Lambda Phi. I ran into a lot of people I hadn't seen in a long time. Some of them ex-cops, some of them are retired. Tommy, who we plug at the end of the show. I gotta tell you, everybody that I talk to, you know, they all listen to the show, man. Mike, they love it. You know, they like you, they like the show. You know, I can't tell you the amount of guys I ran in today. Like, yeah, I listen to you every week, and keep it up. And I appreciate it, man. It was a good time.
Yeah, I saw your picture on. I saw you had a picture up on, what was it, Facebook or
Yeah,
Instagram? I
a lot
saw.
of those guys are Astoria guys. Well, some of them are, not all of them,
Yeah,
but a lot of them Brooklyn, Queens guys, our age bracket.
yeah.
There's a couple of retired cops there. I think one guy knows you. Yeah. Listen, man, St. John's was an important part of my life for a long, long time, and like you and the guys from Astoria, growing up, I mean, there's some people that just, it doesn't matter how long you don't see them. When you see them, it's just like you pick up it just never ended. So it was very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, that's like a big thing. Like the police department's the same way. I have guys that, like, the first 12 years of my career, I worked in one place, and then you leave, and you don't run into these guys for years and years, and then you run into them down the road, and a lot of times, like, the conversation doesn't skip a beat. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, how's your kid doing? How's this? How's that? Where are you now? And blah, 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 blah. And like you just pick right up.
The thing we were talking about, of all the people in my life, and listen, I'm an acquired taste. I understand that. Of all the people, there is about 4 or 5 guys in my fraternity that they've given me a lot of drama, and I've kind of cut out. But that said, there were a couple people there, including some girls who were part of the fraternity, either married to our brothers or part of the sororities that were around during the time. And they all said the same thing. Guys like you, who I didn't really, you and I didn't talk for a very long time in terms, not that we didn't want to, but we just traveled in different circles. But, you know, I always felt, Mike, with you that, no matter how long we went without speaking to it, it was so natural, just reconnecting with you, talking to you. It was very seamless. And I got that from some of these guys here tonight and today. And also, some of the girls said the same thing. It's like, it's just funny how you can pick up with some people, and some people you just get out of your life because they just,
Yeah.
they serve their time and place. It's nothing bad sometimes. It's just that, you just don't mesh anymore. And just certain people, it doesn't matter how long you don't see them for or don't talk to them. You just pick up, like, even if you haven't seen them for a long period of time. So it was very cool.
Ah, good, good. Trying to think what else is going on. Oh, we were talking about this off the air. We're like, what are we going to lead with? And we're definitely going to get into, like, Norm Macdonald, God bless him.
Mm-hmm.
The Keats RKO stuff that my brother, I sent you that picture. That's crazy.
Yeah,
And
I wanted to go with the missing girl out west, but you know what? We'll go with this.
no. I want to get into this Long Island girl, because she's like, let's just be honest. This girl died. This girl is dead somewhere in a ditch. This guy definitely is. He if he didn't do it, he paid someone to do it.
So one of the guys I was talking to today at the reunion, right? The father was the prosecutor behind the Colin Ferguson trial. So my friend Bill, He was in Midtown South for many, many years. Retired about 7, 8 years ago. The father was a very famous prosecutor. The guy's name is Bill. The dad's name was Peck. Last name Peck. And make a long story short, Bill said the same shit that you said. He goes, this thing just reeks. I know you mentioned off the air that one of your cop buddies, had talked to you about the case. Bill was saying the same thing that we were saying. It's just like the whole thing just reeks.
Yeah.
For the audience not aware, I mean, this woman, I guess she's from Blue Point, Long Island. They were living in Florida, her and her fiance. They took a trip, I guess, out west. I guess they were in the Yosemite area out west in either Wyoming or, the Grand Canyon, one of those areas, desolate areas. I guess the last time they got a text was from this girl was, I guess, back at the end of August. And apparently this kid just drove back home in the van that they traveled out there, went back to Florida, and the family hasn't heard since. Like we were talking about off air, the guy, I guess he's a young kid. I mean, he looks like a dirtbag, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not here to judge, but I mean, honestly, he comes back, he drives home in their van. Apparently there was some sort of altercation, I guess, a week before or 2 weeks before they stopped receiving correspondence from the girl.
Oh, excuse me.
You all right?
Yeah.
And then I guess what happened, Mike, was apparently there was some sort of homicide that they were, I guess, not that they were involved in it, but I guess somehow it was tied into the disappearance of this girl. Anyways, make a long story short, the kid comes back to Florida. He lawyers up and he basically says, I'm not talking. Like, why would you do that? I mean, it just reeks. And you brought up a good point. I'm not in law enforcement, so I guess you said something very telling. And, Bill said it to me this afternoon. He's like, once you get a lawyer, you can't really, I guess, talk to the person without really building a case. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, you can't. Once you get a lawyer, that's it. You can't say anything. Like if I arrested you for murder,
right?
And you just say I want a lawyer, the only thing I can get out of you is your name, your address, what's known as your pedigree information, where you live, your date of birth, maybe your social security number, and I mean under the law, also you're only given like ample time to get a lawyer. Like if your lawyer doesn't show up for like 6 or 7 hours. There's like this gray area in the law where I could start questioning you. It's the way it's worded is like ample time for you to get representation.
Otherwise
it's
otherwise
very
you're out of luck.
Yeah, it can get very, like I said, it's like very gray area. But for the most part, this kid already, whatever his name, Laundry, is that his name? Laundry, right?
Yeah, Brian Laundry.
Brian Laundry. He got some dirty laundry, but dude, he's pulling the Dave Chappelle right now. He's taking the fifth,
right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth.
Right. But what I don't understand is like, at the very least, I mean, he's got to be a person of interest, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the jargon, right?
This is the last, from what everyone knows, he's the last dude that's been the last person
that
saw her alive.
Right.
So they have a million questions for this kid. Where, what, and I mean, not to give anything
Mike,
away.
We talked about this a million times, right? So 30 years ago, I could very easily see this kid get away with it, right? 25 years ago, the John Benet Ramsey case still hasn't been solved. In this day and age, with this stuff and the technology that's out there, I can't imagine that if this kid did anything, dirty, which it looks like he did, that he's going to get away with it.
Here's the big question. Here's the little twist, though, Christopher. It seems like he did it all out in the woods.
True. So you can't find the body, I guess? Is that the problem?
When's the last time you saw a camera on an oak tree in the woods?
True. All right.
So
all right.
He's got that going for him. He's also got nature in his favor in a sense. Say he killed this girl, right? Out in the woods and left her there. She's now dinner for all of the animals. The raccoons, the bears.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit difficult, I guess.
It definitely makes it hard. Like the cell phone is a big thing. Like they haven't been able to track her phone from what I gather.
They're looking, I guess, at her last known location, I guess, from the text. I mean, there's 3 PDs involved in it from what I understand. Florida, New York, and I guess Utah, the Utah police are involved in it. And no, I haven't heard anything. The latest development is this kid has now disappeared. Like they can't find him anymore. Like, again, I'm not here to criticize law enforcement, but if he's a person of interest and the FBI is
You
involved too,
can't hold this kid for anything.
but how does he disappear like that?
He disappears, man. He
You
pulled
know, you
the
got the
guy.
FBI, you got the
He
Florida PD, you got everybody up your ass, and this guy, he
he'll
just
turn
poof.
it. This is one of those things. He's going to turn up somewhere in like 3 months, living in some hotel in like Arizona. Someone's going to find.
Supposedly, I guess they're afraid that the kid's going to commit suicide. That's what they're afraid of, and that
Well,
you'll never know where.
Listen, if the kid commits suicide, then we know who did it. The
Right.
only problem is we'll never find the girl.
That's right.
It is what it is, unfortunately.
Right. Just a wacky story, man. I mean,
I remember, this reminds me of something like when we were kids. There was the dude on Long Island. He killed his wife and then was on the news like the next day. And for like almost the entire week.
Yeah, man.
This kid was crying, bring my wife. I love what they were like newlyweds. And he just
yes. I remember that story.
The guy just had enough of her, killed her, put her in like a plastic bag and dumped her somewhere. They found her on like the side of a road somewhere.
So freaking
And this guy was on TV every day crying, find my wife. And eventually it was him. He killed his wife. And who knows now? The guy's probably still in jail, or he's dead, or he's out of jail.
You educated me off air about how the justice system works when it comes to being tried and a lawyer and all and stuff. But I got to imagine this works two ways against him, right, Mike? Either it prevents law enforcement, I guess, from incriminating him, which at the end of the day, you would just take the fifth anyway. Like if you don't want to incriminate, hey, did you kill him? Fifth, like you said, right? Or the opposite end is, even if you had nothing to do with it, which I doubt at this point, based on the circumstances, you've now raised a million red flags across multiple police departments by taking a lawyer and climbing up.
This is the typical OJ move. I didn't kill my wife. I didn't kill my wife. And then he jumps in a Bronco and goes on like a 9-mile-an-hour vehicle pursuit, freaking out. I mean, come on, man.
If I did it.
Yeah. I can't stay in California anymore because the killer might still be there. I mean,
the thing that always got me with OJ is like, look, I think we talked about this once before, but here's the deal, man. Like, you got away with it, right? Whether you did it, whether you didn't do it, whether you believe he did it, whatever.
Oh, he did it.
Right.
He did it.
I believe so too. But that aside, you would think like if you dodge a major bullet like that, right? You would go the rest of your life and just chill out, just go somewhere and not raise a lot of red flags. This guy was taunting people. Like he was like in Los Angeles restaurants, flaunting himself. He was golfing. Hey, like nothing ever happened. And listen, I don't think he should have gone away as long as he did for the Vegas thing, but I almost think it was like retribution.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he flew too close to the sun finally.
Like if I got away with something like, something heinous like that, right?
He did 7 years for stealing his own stuff.
Right. Right, in the Vegas hotel, right.
Baffles me.
But my deal is this, like if you get away with something like that, wouldn't you lay low? Wouldn't you just be like, you know what? All right. I'm playing with house money here, let me chill out for the rest of my life and
absolutely
let bygones be bygones. No, that guy was like flaunting everywhere, writing books. If I did, dude, he's really insane. And just so crazy to think of like how big he was, like the people that we grew up in terms of athletes, him, Caitlyn Jenner or Bruce Jenner, whatever you want to call her, or him or whatever. I get confused. Sorry, folks, not looking to offend. But, some of the people that we grew up with in the 70s, it just turned out to be the biggest. I don't know.
Yeah, but this crazy. It really is crazy. Dude, the guy Beretta, Robert Blake, killed his wife. Oh, I got to go get my gun out of a car, and then comes back and his wife is shot. I don't get that.
So what do you think happened with this? I mean, I think he pushed her off a cliff, right?
Well, this one, like I'm just reading one of the stories quick on the Post here, and it also says something like the last time they heard from her was a text message.
Right.
That could have been anybody. That could have been him. Right. She could have been dead a week or two, a month or two. Who knows?
Right.
You're sending text messages. No one knows. And then you could just take that phone and throw it in the back of a car or a cab somewhere that's going across.
It into a million pieces, right?
Throw it into a lake. No one's ever going to,
Right.
Like I said, when my boy Matty Mo sent me this like a couple of weeks ago, and we both agreed, like, oh man, she's rotting away in the woods somewhere.
She's coyote food. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, it just it reeks. My deal is this. I mean, he's got to be a special. I don't think he's an idiot, this kid, because here's the deal. He lawyered up, which I didn't know the ramifications of what you explained off air. Number two, like you said, he did it in an area where I guess there are no cameras or very limited cameras,
Yeah,
limited technology. And like you said, he had the presence of mind if he did it, right? And if he took the steps that you're mentioning, he took that cell phone and he destroyed it. So, I mean, think what of a sick bastard this guy really was, you know, and covering his tracks and coming back home and Lauren. I don't know, man.
yeah.
Wacky, really, really wacky.
It is. It's like I do. I feel bad for the family because they're probably not. If they catch this kid, he doesn't say anything. They're probably never gonna. He, you know, they're probably never gonna find the body unless somebody stumbles across it.
Somebody
And
said something to the effect that today. I don't know who said it to me, but one of the ex cops said he goes he thought they were trying to meet up with I guess the people out in Portland. You know, I guess you know all the those crazies that riot all the time. He goes he thought that was their destination, or somehow he some sort of intelligence came down the pipe that that's where they were looking to link up. So like these both of these people weren't the greatest. Again, I shouldn't judge because I don't know the entire specifics of it, but it seemed that at the very least they seemed like sketchy type people.
oh, they definitely looked. You know, they had that like Long Island pill addict look, and now they're living in Florida because it's easy to get the pills down there and
Right, right,
just
right,
bouncing
right.
around. And so,
Sad, man. Listen, I mean, I have a daughter. You have daughters. I mean, listen,
yeah.
you don't ever want to see shit like that. You
Oh
know.
no, it's a shitty situation for that family. I feel very bad for them, and I mean, like, I mean, we know where all fingers are pointing right now. So
Right.
we'll sit back and we'll keep everyone apprised of what happens.
Yeah. Let's
So
see what happens, man. Well, let's move over to the RKO Keats. I know Brian said something about it being torn down, and we had a conversation about that. We got Norm Macdonald, a couple other things
yeah,
to get to. Go
yeah,
ahead.
Norm Macdonald, man. Speaking of O.J. Simpson, Norm Macdonald, 61, 9 years battling cancer. No one
Nobody knew, right?
supposedly nobody knew, man. That was his deal. He just kept it to himself. I noticed someone pointed something out, and it doesn't make sense now. He had a period about 4 or 5 years ago where he put on a lot of weight, and people think that might have been steroids he was taking or whatever medication he was on to fight the cancer.
Fight the cancer, right?
But yeah, man, just seems like he hopefully he went peacefully in his sleep or whatever. But yeah,
Seemed
60.
like a cool guy. You know what I noticed, Mike, was he was another guy. He was on Saturday Night Live, but I think maybe we spoke about this at one point, maybe last week with Jim Carrey or a couple weeks ago with Jim Carrey. Another Canadian. You know, how many Canadians,
Yeah,
were on
and
Saturday Night Live?
and his brother is like a legit broadcaster up in Canada, like the CBC up there, the Canadian
Okay.
broadcast. His brother is a real news reporter. I mean, he did the fake news, but
Right.
his brother was a legit newscaster up in Canada. And the reason, people always say like, why did Norm Macdonald got fired from SNL because he made too many jokes about O.J. Simpson. There was
Really?
yeah,
I didn't know.
there was an executive there named Don Ohlmeyer, and he
Hmm.
was very tight with OJ. And Norm just
Went crazy. Right.
Norm was told like take it easy on him, and he didn't. And he just kept going off and going off on OJ. He eventually got fired. I think Norm wrote in a book something like he goes, they said it was due to my performance, and the ratings did dip a little. But he goes, I don't think it was worth me getting fired. And he kind of looks back in hindsight. I guess it was like a mutual kind of thing. My ratings were going down. But I mean, hey, man, 61, not, super young dude to fucking die. And he was one of the funniest stand-ups. He had that dry delivery, that dry sense of humor. Wasn't afraid of anything. He made that OJ joke at the end of the ESPYs one year to Charles Woodson, which is a real funny joke. He points out like Charles Woodson in the audience. He goes, wow, you won the Heisman Trophy. No one can ever take that away from you unless you kill your wife and a waiter. And they told him the whole show, like, don't do the joke. And he waited like right till the end of the ESPYs to do it. So, and he was the last comedian ever to host it because of that.
Dude, he seemed like a funny guy. Like I remember him from Saturday Night Live. I didn't know that stuff. That's pretty interesting, and I didn't know he got fired from Saturday Night Live because of that. Dude, I just remember the only other thing I really remember, the only other comedian I really remember really ripping OJ's ass. I mean, everybody did to an extent, but Howard Stern.
Yeah,
I seized the OJ. He be looking scared. Remember that one?
yeah, that was
That farcical call.
the night of the chase with Al Michaels. I
He
was
be
walking
slumped
around.
in. He be slumped in the car, looking all sad.
Yeah,
Dude, it
Baba
was
Booey
pretty.
to you all.
And Baba Booey, excuse me, that's a farcical call. Don't take that call very seriously.
Peter. Peter, this is Al Michaels. That was a totally farcical call. There was a code used by a certain radio personality.
Baba Booey.
But yeah, man, I remember walking. I was walking around on a foot post on the Lower East Side. I was on a detail in Manhattan that night, and these two kids just came up to me and they're like, "Yo, man, they're chasing OJ." I'm like, "Chasing OJ where?" And I walked into like this little pizza place, and like this is how long in 1990. I was watching it on a black and white TV.
Right,
The
right,
pizza
right, right.
place, like, oh shit! I sat there probably for like an hour watching it, and what a people with signs, "Go Juice, go!"
I guess after we get into the RKO stuff, we'll go into the Mets series, and Baba Booey had a big role in the 30 for
Yeah,
30.
he's a real diehard Mets fan, Baba
I didn't
Booey.
realize that, but he was all over that documentary. So
Yeah,
I
but I
guess we'll talk
also
about that in a
with
minute.
Norm. One last thing with Norm, my brothers got me a video from him on Cameo, where you can like
Okay.
pay celebrities to wish you well, and they actually got me Norm. I think it was like 2 years ago for my birthday, and it was actually the coolest thing. He sends you like a 1 minute video, a
Oh
personalized one
wow,
minute, and so now I have that in my phone for the rest of my life. So
that's
thank you,
very
Norm.
cool. So what do you do? You pay the guy money, and he sends you a video,
Yeah,
or
it's like every celebrity's different. Like you could get like Beetlejuice from the Howard Stern show for like probably like $20. I don't know what I think Norm costs like whatever it is, like $100 or something.
and
There's
what do
certain
they say? Happy birthday to you, or
yeah,
something? Or
it'll be like a 1 minute video, like, hey Chris, this is Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Oh, happy birthday, buddy, and good luck,
oh,
whatever.
that's cool.
And it's like 1 minute on the nose. It's a video sent to you, and but yeah, it was actually really cool.
Yeah,
So
that's super cool, man. I didn't know you could do
but
something
yeah, if
like
you
that.
ever go on Cameo, there's like all of these celebrities that you can just like. Most of them are just it's been a while since you've heard of them, but there are other people who are just like Instagram famous that'll give you a happy birthday or whatever.
Can you get like a
Yeah,
dirty? Can you get like a dirty version of like Samuel L. Jackson? Hey, mother effer, happy birthday! Like
you know
a
what it is.
30 or 40
I think
second.
he's too big of a star to
He's
be
too big
on it
for. Okay.
because like some of them are like 200, 300, 500. I think it's Sam Jackson would probably go on and be like, give me $10,000 for 1 minute of work.
I'm sure somebody would pay for that. That would be pretty cool. Yo,
Yeah.
mother effer, happy
Yeah,
birthday!
I think because it doesn't just have to be happy birthday. It could be like whatever you want. So
That's great, man. That's great. I didn't know about that. I gotta check it out.
yeah, it's called Cameo. They have
Cameo, huh? Okay.
wacky stuff.
Okay.
Um, let's get it. Keats RKO getting torn down finally.
So I thought that was a landmark when you brought it up. I guess Brian brought it up to you off air. That really took me. That's me and Michael have talked about this throughout the episodes. Our fathers. Going to the movies back in the day was a really big thing. Your dad, you went out with
Yeah,
the family, you went out with your friends. Mike comes from a family of three brothers. I have a brother and a sister. My dad and his dad were very tight, when we were growing up, and they would always take us to the movies, and the RKO's, I guess, was the go-to spot, even more so than the Steinway Theater, for us. Steinway Theater was like the place in Astoria where I guess we went more with our friends, but I guess when we were
yeah,
really small, we went to RKO Keats, right?
yeah,
And for those that never been to RKO Keats, it was, I guess, on Main Street in Flushing. It was an old theater. The inside of it looked like something out of the Titanic. It had this big stairways. It was dual level. It looked like something out of the turn, which is when it was made, I guess, at the turn of the 20th century. And me and Michael and our families, our dads, we saw so many great movies there. We saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. We saw, I guess, Flash Gordon back in the day, right?
I remember
The
Rocky.
Rockies,
I remember
right?
Rocky Four there. I remember Return of the Jedi there.
Most of the Star Wars movies we saw there, right?
Yeah, I think almost. When did I say? I know I saw. I think we saw Temple of Doom there.
Yep, the Indiana Jones. I definitely we at least were for Raiders of the Lost Ark, maybe the second one too.
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, I guess at some point, I guess it became dilapidated. They shut it down. I thought it was, designated as a landmark where they couldn't really do that sort of thing. But you said Brian mentioned that he went by it the other day and they tore it down. Is that what
Yeah, I
happened?
got the picture. I'll actually put it up when the show comes out. I'll make sure to put the picture up. But yeah, it's part of the from. I asked my other brother Kevin, who does real estate law and knows all this stuff. We're like, I thought it was a landmark, and he said they can actually just keep the lobby and build around it. The lobby, I think, was just designated the landmark. I don't think it was the whole theater. I guess they can designate certain parts of it. I mean, that building has been what? I think I want to say it's over 20 years that it
Yeah.
hasn't been touched. So
Minimum. I'm thinking almost like in the '90s, Mike. To be honest with you, I kind of remember maybe driving down there around that time and it just not being anything.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Um, Listen, that area has changed a lot. Just like I guess Astoria, it's always been a melting pot. I mean, I guess at some point you had the Italians and the Irish there. Then I think it was heavily Jewish. I think now it's Asian for the most part. But that was a huge, huge, huge part of Flushing, Queens. And like
Oh
I said,
yeah.
for our childhood, those movies. I mean, it was priceless. All the stuff that we saw and like the decor of it. I just don't think you'll ever see anything like that again. It looked like I said, my memories of it it like it reminded me of looking at like the deck of the Titanic, like that main floor, like in the beginning of the movie, like when they're looking up the stairs and stuff. It had that huge
Oh
stairways, and
yeah. Those
you know,
those two swooping staircases like
right,
that. They had those old like timey statues in there of like the little cherubs and shit like
right,
that.
right.
The place was something else, man. I mean,
I
it
wonder
really
if
was.
I wonder what they're going to do with it. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, like you said off air, they're probably just making it into some sort of condo or some nonsense like that. They'll probably, try to marginalize it and make every dollar that they can. Also, just going back to what we talked about before, I mean, I just think any opportunity for them to redo the movie theater and make it is kind of dead because the way that movies are being distributed these days. I can't really, I've said it time and time again throughout our episodes that I just think the way that you consume movies are gone. I just think that the movie theater as we know it is not long for this world. Maybe internationally it is, but here in the
I
US,
think it's uh, I kind of agree with it. I just think it's going to get like small. There's going to be less and less of them. That's what
right.
I think.
Yes, I agree.
Like you
And I
said,
just think
like
I think
I,
that
I've heard
yes,
this on other shows and we've talked about it. I think you're just going to see a lot more smaller movies to streaming services, and when it's a big budget like action or whatever it's kind of movie, it's just gonna they'll put it in the theater. Maybe they'll do both. They'll do or maybe like a 2 month run in a theater or a month run in a theater, and then put it on a streaming service for maybe 10 or $15 or whatever for another 6 months or
right.
and then it's free again.
Me and George
So,
were talking about it. We had George on earlier or a couple of months ago, and maybe we'll try to get him on again. He did another movie actually that was filmed in Astoria, so hopefully we can get him on again. But we were kind of talking about this. Like I'm writing a screenplay, like I mentioned, and George is in the movie business. And we kind of talked about it. It's like the distribution channels are completely different than what it was 20 years ago. Even now, as I try to figure out ways to get once I complete the screenplay, how to get it distributed or picked up or sold, it's just completely different. My buddy Dave, too, who I've been trying to get on the show for forever, he just came out with a new movie about a Jewish boxer who survived the Holocaust. I think the guy's name is Harry Tuft. So he survived the Holocaust and he became a big boxer in the 40s. Dave, I think, did Gravesend. He's the money behind Gravesend, and he just put out this movie. It was up in the Toronto Film Festival, and I was reading about how these things get distributed, Mike. I just think that it's changing rapidly, and I agree with you. I think that it's going to be kind
well,
of like, go ahead.
yeah, like you said, there's so many outlets now. It's not like like when we were growing up, there was channel 2, 4, 7, 9, and 11. And
Right,
that was
right,
it. Now there's 850 channels,
yeah,
and how many streaming services, and you can technically, if you have the money. I mean, what you see now with some of these streaming services, it's people if they just have the money. Like, say you're a rich guy, say you were Chris the billionaire, a multimillionaire, and you were like, I love the Clash. I'm gonna make a movie about the Clash, and you could just put up probably like 1 million or 2 million of your own.
And get it done.
Make a cheap version of your screenplay and put it out there on some streaming service, or just put it on the internet, or put it on YouTube. I mean,
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes
you
sense.
have
Yeah.
you have people doing that now, and putting stuff on YouTube, getting it monetized, or putting it out there at all these smaller film festivals, hoping somebody picks it up. So it's very people are really the companies are really striving for content now, because now you have so many of these channels, so many of these streaming services, that everyone just wants to put everything out. Especially now, it's not even like you can make all the movies you want, like the Hollywood movies you want, but these channels now seem to really start to strive now for their own content. They want their own shows. They want their own Breaking Bad. They want their
Yeah,
own
yeah.
Sopranos. That's what they want.
And even the stuff that you bring up to me off air that we talk about here, and like the stuff that I've been watching, the more and more I notice, it's not stuff that you're watching on regular television. You're not watching it on Channel 4, ABC. This is stuff usually on Netflix. It's a documentary. It's a streaming made service movie that just goes directly to streaming service. The 30 for 30 documentaries, which I guess we'll get into in a couple minutes, but all the stuff is just like you said, it's being distributed completely different. That's why I think, like, just going back to my statement, I just think that the movie industry as we know it is gone, and it ain't never coming back. And something like the RKO Keats, like, I hate to hear that it got torn down, but part of me almost wishes that they would renovate it, or somebody would come in and redo it, and make it a spectacle on Main Street. But I don't see the market for like those type of places anymore. It's like almost like the ice cream parlor, like in the 1950s that our parents used to talk about. Like, you don't see those places
Yeah,
anymore, right?
it's like the what was it like when Woolworths used to have a diner in it? That shit's
Right,
all gone, man.
right.
It's like the horse and carriage. It's like the guy that used to drive around to sharpen knives. No one does that anymore. No one.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's
Right,
just it's not. It's like you said. It's not the way we see it now. It's just evolving into something else.
right.
How, you have kids. I have kids. Do your kids even watch TV anymore? Or do they watch everything on an iPad or a computer or a phone?
It varies. Like, my son's big into video games. My daughter watches stuff, but not so much iPad. Like, it's Netflix. A lot of Netflix they watch. A lot of Netflix. It's not like traditional TV. Not
Yeah,
even HBO Max. It's just more Netflix, Hulu, that type of stuff. Even my wife, like the stuff that she watches, it's like it's more Hulu based. You know, the stuff. Look, I'm a sports fan, so I kind of go back and forth between ESPN and stuff that puts out sports content. And I'm a movie guy. I'm like you. I'm a pop culture guy. So there's stuff that I watch. So I kind of consume it in different ways. Like whether it be Netflix or Hulu. I have a good mixture. Plus live TV for the sporting events that I do. But I tell you what,
yeah,
if I wasn't a sporting fan as big as I am, I don't know if I'd really watch too much traditional TV. Let's put it that way at all. I find
yeah,
myself for my cable subscription. I mean, the amount of stuff that I watch on those basic channels that I get, very, very limited.
yeah.
Very limited stuff.
I barely watch cable TV anymore.
Right.
It really it's weird. Like, I never thought I would be that person. I always thought I'd just be an older person that relied more on watching like HBO but yeah, like you said, more Hulu stuff, more Netflix stuff, YouTube. It's uh,
YouTube's big, right? I mean,
it's
seriously, I mean, we put out the podcast every week
yeah,
on it. I mean, you can see, it's different. I mean, we talked about Mike and the Mad Dog, and I think how Mike, I really think, just got left behind with the technology. It's like, you
yeah,
know what, the way that you did things in the 90s and distributed your content, you don't need to go to the Connecticut broadcast of, a school to go on a radio station and get your point across. Now you got Twitter. Now you got YouTube.
yeah,
Now you got so many different ways to get your opinion out there and get your presence out there that you don't need somebody like that. So I just going back to the RKO things for a moment. Like you said, I think things evolve. It just adds in some cases to see something like that, that had so much history behind it, just get completely marginalized and torn down. But
yeah.
it's pretty weird and
Eh,
pretty surprising. But what are you gonna do?
you can't
Life
go
goes
home
on, right?
again. Yep, you can't go home again. You can't go home again. Speaking of going home again, you brought it up. We were talking about the 30 for 30 for the Mets. Once
So
was
good,
it?
man.
Once Upon a Time in Queens, it was called.
Once Upon a Time in Queens, and you know what? You know, you're a big well, you're a Met fan. I'm a Yankee fan, like Camacho. I'm a huge Yankee fan. I guess the '86 Mets was the start for me in terms of me hating the Mets and hating the fan base. I never really had a problem with them up until that point, but I watched this and it brought back memories, Mike. It brought back all the stuff that we've talked about throughout the podcast. It was such a well done documentary that even if you're not a Met fan, you can just appreciate, I guess, the the time warp back into time into the mid '80s.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
yeah. A lot of those like documentaries love to, especially the ones that hit you in like the mid '80s or the early '90s and stuff like that, and brings you back to that time. And I mean,
it really was magical,
we were
though. I
14-year
mean,
old kids. I remember taking the
magical.
train there. My aunt, my aunt Georgina, who lives downstairs from us, she worked on Wall Street at the time. She
Okay.
would come home. She would get free tickets to the Met games all the time. And she would just call up before she was coming home and saying, listen, I got 2 tickets, 4 tickets, whatever, if you want to go to the game. So me and my brother would be like, all right, let's go. Like, we were like 15 years old, 14 years. I was 14, 15. My brother was like 13.
Right.
I'd be like, we just jump on the train and go. Go to Queensboro
It was
Plaza, jump on the
phenomenal.
7.
Dude, it was phenomenal. Like I said, I wasn't a Met fan, but obviously you had to
Yeah.
be living under a rock not to know what was going on and how they took over the city for those 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I took a couple of takeaways. Number one, I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was really well made. I thought it captured the '80s. I thought it captured Queens completely to a T. A couple of takeaways I took. Number one, I didn't like the racial component that this guy Bryant, this ESPN reporter, brought into it. So I guess he kind of tried to, pinpoint the fact that Frank Cashin, and the Mets kind of like favored Carter and Hernandez over Gooden and Strawberry. And he said that, I guess, what happened? Something happened where I guess they replaced George Foster. George Foster was the guy who
Yeah,
brought
that
something
was,
up,
yeah.
right? And I guess he was crying, he was screaming racism or whatever it was, and exactly the point that I just made. And they turned around and replaced George Foster with Kevin Mitchell, who
Who's
was another
black.
black kid.
Yeah.
So it's like, look, I get it. It probably existed. What was something that took me aback, which we talked about off air. I think it was Strawberry who talked about it. He was like, he's playing in the minor leagues and he was hearing the N word, N bombs dropped on him. And I'm like, again, you have to be naive not to think that that shit doesn't happen and didn't happen back then. But it's like to hear somebody that big, even in the '80s, talk about that. It's a little jarring. I'm sure it happened, and I'm sure it happened in the South. So I took that. Um, there was just so many pieces. A lot of stuff was drawn from the book from Jeff Pearlman's book, The Bad Guys
Yeah.
Won. But one thing that going back to what story that you told about your aunt is that I guess in one of the crucial games against Houston, they were showing like all these people, and this shows you how dated it was. How Mike they were talking about how like everybody who was working on Wall Street in New York City, they were watching that game on the televisions in the storefronts.
Yeah.
So like, you didn't have a cell phone in your hand.
Yeah.
You didn't have it like, you were working in the city and you're listening to it on the radio.
Oh,
Like,
people
shit,
people were packing into bars.
the bars,
People
or they were like stopping like
storefront.
at like Sam Goodies or whatever it was, and like looking at the storefront and catching the game. It
Oh,
was
when
like a
the
16 inning game towards the end.
and the one guy, what was it? One guy said there was a limousine just stopped on like 7th Avenue.
Right, they were
Everyone just
watching
watched.
that. That was super cool, man. Like,
Yeah.
for the kids today, they'll never get that because you got the technology, so you
Yeah.
don't know what it is without it. But like back in the day, I mean, if you were working in Manhattan and you're trying to take the train home and you're a big Met fan, you would have missed that unless you did what exactly these people did.
Or how about this? I mean, we'll go back in time too. We'll play this game. How many times did you set the timer on your VCR to tape like a Yankee game or a Knick game or a Ranger game, whatever? And then you were basically telling all your friends at work or what, like, listen, man, don't speak to me right now. Don't talk to me about the game because I'm going to watch it when I get home.
Right, yeah.
Meanwhile, now you could just, sit here like this and be like, oh yeah, the game's on.
Right, you get instant. It's just completely insane. But those were my big takeaways. I just thought it was so well done, And I put it on Twitter, Mike, on my personal Twitter account. Of all the sporting events that I ever watched, I think I told the story to you once before, but like I'm watching Game Six, and they went into detail in Game Six. It was the most surreal sporting event I've ever witnessed
Yeah.
in my life. And I remember Jason, my brother Jason, who's a big Met fan. He's rooting hard. He was like you guys. He was a big Met fan. I'm a big Yankee fan, and I guess I started teasing him with 2 outs in Game Six. And my father started to get really angry with me, so he starts running after me like, "Shut up! You're making him cry, this and that." And as my father's admonishing me, and he's smacking me at this point. He's like, "You're a real asshole. Making the kid cry and stuff." Blah 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 blah. I start to see this stuff unfold, and I'm like, "Wait a second! Stop hitting me. Let me see this for a second." Base hit,
Yeah.
wild pitch, error. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. Never seen anything. And look, you could argue to the cows come home about Tyson, maybe Villanova beating Georgetown, Miracle on Ice, which is probably right up there with it. Um, but even that, I made a comment to somebody, I guess on Twitter, she was saying, well, I watched it live. No, you didn't. You don't watch Miracle on Ice live. That was
Yeah.
1980, and that was a Friday night.
Yeah.
Me and my brother watched that stuff on ABC Worldwide of Sports that Saturday morning.
Yeah.
We were dialing 976-1313 to get the freaking score. You didn't watch that live. But even that was surreal too. But that Met game, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Maybe the Giants Super Bowl when they beat the Patriots, the undefeated Patriots.
I said,
That
all
was
right.
up there.
Patriots Atlanta Super Bowl.
Up there. But
yeah. Well, that's all right. You definitely, that's the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history.
But here's the thing: football is different in terms of like time versus the way that a baseball game.
Yeah, you can manage. Yeah, in
Right.
football, obviously, you can manage the time.
So the Mets were down to the last strike to the point where in the documentary, and I'm sure you remember this, but the book wrote about it. They flashed it on the screen. Congratulations, Boston Red Sox. They announced Bruce Hurst as the MVP.
Yeah.
They got Clemens, who shaved, who usually wore a 5 o'clock shadow.
See that? Yeah. Shaved. I didn't know that. And then when he said that, I was like, good for that guy.
He shaved, right.
There's another video made about it was like a docu series about, it wasn't a docu series, it might have been just like a one-off documentary about that 86 game. At a time, Clemens was in the bullpen signing autographs. Like people were coming up like they had won.
Man. Just insane. And like, I think what happened was, and I knew this because I read Perlman's book and I've read Dan Shaughnessy's book, The Curse of the Bambino, and he goes into it a lot. I guess the crucial mistake that John McNamara made, which I guess in hindsight, he got fired, John McNamara, I guess the year after it happened, but they talked about it being the most mismanaged game on that level in any sport in the history of sports. And I guess what he did in the 10th inning is Bill Buckner, he usually took him out for defensive replacements. But I guess he said, as they were subbing the guy out, he said, no, let Buckner go on. I want my guys to be out there when we win. So basically he wanted Buckner to be out there for the photo op. And it ended up costing them. Buckner's knees were shot, and he knew Mookie from the I guess from the National League, and he knew he was fast. And they're saying a combination of the guy's knees being shot and the fact that Mookie was a speed demon, it was a recipe.
It was a perfect storm. I mean, that is like Mookie Wilson gets a lot of credit, and he deserves. That was one of the greatest at bats in the World Series.
16 pitches, it was phenomenal.
I mean, he was just fouling it off and fouling it off and fouling it off.
Dude, it was such a tension-ridden game, and just like, look, you could argue all you want about the greatest collapses. You could talk about the Yankees in 2004. You could, talk about Atlanta. Dude, they were a strike away. They were a strike away from ending a 75 or a 70-year curse, whatever it was. And it was phenomenal. Really, it brought me back in terms of the music. They talked about the time period in the 80s, which I think we've kind of beat to death a little bit. But really, really phenomenal, well made. Lenny Dykstra was in it.
He's a mess.
I like Lenny, man. Lenny, let me tell you, as a diehard,
what's gonna happen, man? I mean, this guy was at the plate and was gonna hit the ball. He just hit the ball, man. He's fucked up, man. He's bad. He's in bad shape.
He's the one guy that I always wish played for the Yankees, man. I love Lenny Dykstra. If there was ever a ball player that, I guess maybe you could say the same like as a Met fan, or maybe you can't. I don't know, but one Yankee that you wish was a Met. If there was
Yeah.
one Met that was I wish was a Yankee, it was Dykstra. And I tell you what, I found a new appreciation of Keith Hernandez. Keith Hernandez.
Yeah. Say what you want.
You don't
Go
like
ahead.
Keith?
Go ahead. No, he got too. He gets too. I love Keith Hernandez, man, but it's like a love hate sometimes. He gets too preachy. Like
Yeah, yeah, a
he's
little
just
bit.
like, I know everything. Where he's sitting there petting his cat. And it was just down, and I just knew it was. The game got all cerebral at that point, and I couldn't believe. Like, come on, dude.
He's a good announcer, man. He really is. I mean,
Like I said, I love everything else about him, really.
and he's a
My one friend has a story about him where he doesn't take pictures. They saw him one time at a game. This is when he's announcing. Him and Darling were announcing, and somebody asked him, like, "Hey, Keith, can you take a picture with me?" And his answer was, "Keith Hernandez does not do selfies." And he just kept walking. I also say this about Keith Hernandez. I think he saved the show Seinfeld when
He's
he's
phenomenal
on
in Seinfeld, right?
when
He was
he was
great.
on that episode. That was like early in the show, and the show was like
Yeah.
had like lackluster ratings, and he was on it. And it's one of the biggest episodes I think.
I think that's a good take. I think that's a good take. He did add some oomph to it. The whole spitting on him and McDowell.
Oh yeah, the
spitting
whole
on
thing.
George and Kramer. That was great. That was great. I ran into Mookie Wilson one time. I got his autograph, and check this out. I think I may have mentioned this to you, but I asked Mookie to sign to Chris, and then underneath the inscription of the date where the game happened, which happened on my wife's birthday, which we'll get into. There's a whole sort of, that's for another episode. But anyways, Mookie looked at me and he goes, "What do you want me to write?" I go, "To Chris," and write "Curse of the Bambino." He goes, "Man, I can't do that." I go, "What do you mean you can't do that?" He goes, "Steiner Sports won't let me do that." I go,
Yeah.
"Dude, come on, man. I'm paying you $50. I mean, can't you write the little inscription underneath it?" He goes, "Dude, they won't let me. They won't let." He was such a cool guy, man. I met him. Then I said his son Preston, I guess, was playing for the Rockies, right? So I go, "Mookie, what's the chances of your son getting traded to the Yankees?" He's, "Man, Yankees? He ain't never playing for the Yankees. I fucking hate the Yankees." Dude, he was great, man. He was a really cool guy. He shook my hand, and I like Mookie a lot too. Mookie was a cool guy.
Well, like when you read the book, he's super religious.
Yeah, he was cool,
He's
man.
very
He was really cool.
like if you read in the book, The Bad Guys Won. It was like there were two people on that team that didn't do anything, that didn't party, and it was Gary Carter and Mookie Wilson.
Right.
And like they usually sat together towards the front of the plane. They didn't want to know anything that was going on in the back. And now the book was written before Gary Carter died. In that book, they smashed Gary Carter a lot in the book. Like the team
I
was
remember.
not.
Yes.
They were not big fans of him. In this docuseries, Gary Carter has since passed away. He had brain cancer and died at like 57 years old. Everyone was kind of treating him with kid gloves in this. Oh, the kid. And meanwhile, it was like, when you read that book, there were guys like, fuck him. He was always the first guy off the bus. He wanted the microphone in his face. He was the only guy that wanted to do
they went
interviews.
into it. They talked about him, being like a straight arrow guy and how he rubbed people the wrong way on other teams. I think, you know what? I probably I read it. I read the book, but I don't really remember them really going into detail about him. But I'm sure he did rub people the wrong way. You know what? Go ahead.
His nickname was The Face.
Mm.
Because he always wanted his face in the camera. And even that the one female reporter said the joke, like, I could ask him a question and come back an hour later and he's still talking. So,
but I got that. He seemed like a good guy, man. I mean, it's horrible. He passed away early.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I'll give you a trivia question that I don't, the one thing I didn't like was that they left a couple details, and I'll give you a trivia question that I think for both Yankee and Met fans is pretty entertaining. So, who was the losing pitcher in both Game 6 of the World Series in 1986 and the losing pitcher in the Bucky Dent game in 1978? It's the same guy.
Is it sure? No.
It's not Schiraldi. It's Bob Stanley.
Yeah, Bob Stanley.
Bob Stanley is the losing pitcher in the Bucky Dent game, and he's the losing pitcher in the 1986 Game 6 game. So, I remember reading about that, and I forgot the length of the guy's career, but it was just a lot of kooky little things like that that they go into.
Here's another trivia question. who was on the rosters for both the 69 and played in both, was in both on the rosters for both series, the 69 series and the 86 series.
Had to be Seaver, right?
He was still on the Red Sox at the time.
Tom Seaver?
Yep, Tom Seaver was on the Red Sox at the time.
So you're saying who was on the Mets roster in 69?
Yeah, who was on the roster for both the 69 and the 86?
86 Mets?
No,
wow.
no. Yeah, Tom Seaver was on the 69 roster for the Mets and
Right.
the 86 roster for the Red Sox.
Is that the answer to the question?
Yeah, Tom
Okay.
Seaver.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, they talked about Tom Seaver in it too. Like they talked about how they brought him back, and I guess they left him out and didn't figure that. They said that either they left him out purposely because they wanted to move forward with youth, or they made a crucial mistake because it was a PR, blast because they let him get away for a second time. We were real young when that happened. So I think you may have still been on Long Island, but I remember when he got traded. I mean, it was very vague for me. But that was a big deal. That was a really, really big deal, I guess, back in the day, more so than anything else, I think, in our lifetime, Tom Seaver getting traded. I guess, what would the equivalent be today? Like Derek Jeter being traded? I mean,
he was that big,
Was he that big? I guess so.
You don't talk about, because you don't talk about Nolan Ryan, like, in that respect.
No, he didn't. Seaver was Tom Terrific, man. I mean, for Met fans, he's got to be your Jeter, right? Back in the day. I mean, he was as big as Reggie, right? I mean, if not bigger, right?
I think the only guy you could compare him to, if he would have won the World Series, would have been David Wright. If David Wright had a ring and they traded him, that's it.
I mean, Seaver was a homegrown guy. I mean, he was a god in New York City.
Yeah.
I mean, for many years. I mean, Tom Terrific. I can't imagine the equivalent of of a Yankee. I mean, the only thing I could think about would be maybe Jeter or somebody to that effect being traded at the, I guess.
Or like a Mariano, yeah.
Yeah, Mariano, right?
Something like that.
Something like that, right? I mean, it was a really good series. For the Met fans and for baseball fans in general, I just thought the thing was well made. I just, from the music that was included in it, which was phenomenal, to like the little stories and the backdrop, and Queens, which they showed. They showed the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
I kind of resented that because Yankee Stadium is closer to Historia than Shea Stadium is, but I got it. They talked about the bridge and tunnel crowd being more associated with the Mets, and Manhattan being more associated with the Yankees, and the middle class guy being associated with the Mets, and the blue collar guy versus the Yankee who was more of like an aristocrat. So there was so many takes on it. It was a really, really well put together series. I enjoyed Carter. Hernandez. I enjoyed Dykstra. Mookie was great. Dwight Gooden. Which was another story. I didn't realize this. I guess Dwight Gooden's father got shot by the mother. He was having an affair.
Yeah, the father was having an affair and the mother shot him.
Mother shot him? Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, it was. It was a great, because I don't remember that being in the book either.
Neither do I. There was some tidbits like that I got that, the stuff with Strawberry and the minors, again, I'm sure it happened, but I never heard that. That was pretty
that
wild.
wasn't in the book. Yeah.
Listen, I get racism exists. I'm sure it exists today, in many different facets. But to hear a guy like Strawberry say something like that it happened to him to the point where he was like, you know what? I just don't want to play ball, man. He goes, I don't want to hear that shit. I want to do something else. Yeah, it's a little disconcerting. It's like that stuff like that you think would happen in the 40s and the 50s, like somewhere in the South, that happened to Jackie Robinson, not to like a contemporary guy like Strawberry, But listen, it happened. It happens. I believe him. It's messed up. It's definitely messed up. But check it out, guys. Like if you're a baseball fan or a Met fan, I would definitely take the time. It's a 4-point part series, 30 for 30 on ESPN. Like Mike said earlier, I don't know if you had to pay for it, Mike. I think it might have been an ESPN.
No, I actually, that night we talked about it on the phone. I went online, not went online. I actually went on like the preview channel, and it was like, it started playing. I missed like maybe the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and then just watched all 4 in a row. But yeah, it's on ESPN. The bad guys won. You can also read the book. Who was the guy? The guy Jeff Pearlman wrote.
Yeah, Jeff Pearlman's The Bad Guys. The Bad Guys one, which is phenomenal. He's written a couple of really good books, but that takes the cake. And I'm not just saying that to you because I'm not a Met fan, but I enjoyed that book thoroughly. think he wrote a book about the '90s Cowboys too, which was really good. Um, but that series really it gives a different take. Like I've seen a lot of the Curse of the Bambino documentaries from the other side, from the Red Sox point of view. This
Yeah,
is really the first one that I got from the Met point of view, where they showed you the swag, they showed you the time period, they showed you the music. There's a lot of Beastie Boys, a lot of Run DMC involved, which was phenomenal back in the day. If you came from Queens, me and Mike, we grew up with that stuff. I'm sure anybody over the age of 40, if you lived in Queens at that time and you liked any sort of music, you remember it. And it's great stuff, the hip hop, the freestyle, really, really
yeah,
well put together. But
definitely, definitely check it out.
there was one other thing I wanted to mention to you, Mike. I mean, I think we talked about this off air. I don't know if you had a chance to check out Crimes and Penalties, the story about the Danbury Trashers. Um, with Jimmy Galante, I guess a mobbed up guy in the trash business in Connecticut, who gave his 17-year-old son, I guess, the general manager duties of a minor league team. And it kind of coincided with the NHL strike, I guess, in 2007, I think, 2004, 2007, like around that time period. Another well
Mhm.
put together thing. It's on Netflix. I checked it out. I don't know if we have time really to get into it, but I don't even think you watched it yet. But if
No,
you
I
have a
haven't
chance,
seen it. We'll check it out
check it
next
out. I
week.
thought it was very interesting, very cool.
All right. One more thing before we wrap up. My buddy Jack sent me this. The great Sylvester Stallone movie Nighthawks is getting a reboot.
Ooh,
It's getting a reboot as a series with what's his face? That guy Frank Grillo, who I think is a great action guy. I think he's just older now,
okay.
and he kind of like missed his window to do action movie, like to
Been
be.
it's been so long. Nighthawks is like one of those movies like Victory. Remember Victory, the soccer movie?
Yeah, you know what it is with Nighthawks is a movie that it's in between like the Rockies and the Rambos. It's like sandwiched in because I want to say it's before Rocky
Between like
3.
78 and 82, like in that
Yeah,
time period.
it's before Rocky 3 and before the Rambo series, where it really, like Rocky 2 was a big movie as well. Rocky 1 and
Right.
2 are big movie, but Rocky 3 is where it really goes like super commercial with Mr. T, and then the next one with Ivan Drago, and then the Rambo series just takes off as well. But yeah, this is one of the movie, the Nighthawks movie, the original Nighthawks movie is Sylvester Stallone and Billy D. Williams is his partner. And they play like these street cops in the original, the old school street crime unit, which actually existed in the NYPD. These guys were like plain clothes. They were considered the best of like your street cop, like these plain clothes street cops. These guys took guns off the street, robbery collars, gun collars. These guys were the best of the best. And Stallone actually shot scenes in the movie in the street crime base down in Randall's Island in the movie.
Oh wow, okay.
And my buddy Brian, who actually worked there, put a thing up on Instagram, Stallone, that this was coming out, and he said he actually donated workout equipment there in the '80s, like, free weights and stuff like that. And he actually said, he goes, "We still have the weights you gave us from back in the day."
That's cool, man. That's cool. Like I said, it's been a long time since I watched that, but it just reminds me of like that time period, like you said, that was sandwiched, where he came out with like a string of movies that I watched, but I don't really remember. Even like stuff like Victory, which I just mentioned.
Victory was a soccer movie
Yeah,
with a
right,
million
with
different
Pele and
guys.
him,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I remember watching it. I don't remember too much of it. It was kind of like The Longest Yard, that kind of deal.
yeah,
It's based on soccer instead. They're in a penitentiary. Nighthawks, I remember. I remember watching that. Like you said, it had to be like 1980, 81. We
yeah,
were young when that happened,
yeah.
when that came
I
out.
remember watching it on HBO. Like I didn't watch it in
Yes,
the
yeah,
movies or
yeah,
anything.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Rutger Hauer is the bad guy. He's like this international
He's
terrorist.
phenomenal. By the way, we should get into him at some point. Blade Runner, he was phenomenal,
Yeah.
right? You know, he's
Uh,
got so many great scenes in that movie and so many great lines.
yeah, he had a
We
great
should talk about
career.
him at one
The
point.
late, the late great Rutger
Rutger
Hauer.
Hauer, right? And then I guess talking about history. I mean, they just came out with a revised Rolling Stone top 500 song list, which I think we'll save for next week. But I got some interesting thoughts on that one. I'm sure I've spoken to a couple people already that maybe you brought it up to me as well. That
Yeah, this is a list. I think it got just redone recently, and we can get into like we can get into a long
just an
story on
interesting, just an
that.
interesting choice of songs. I think. We'll leave it for next week, I guess. But I guess the top song was "Respect" by Aretha Franklin, if I'm not mistaken. And
It's a good song, but
I'm a music guy, Mike. We'll get into it a little bit more. Some of these songs are good songs. I think "Fight the Power" by Public Enemy is #2. I love Public Enemy. Chuck T follows me on Twitter. Some stuff has been completely ignored, like in the '50s and the '60s and stuff. And I don't know, man. It's a. I'm very skeptical of the list, to say the least. But we can kind of get into it next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. What do you got to plug?
So very busy, man. Then I did the gig today. We went to the reunion, so I did it pro bono. But DJ Chris Clash, www.chrisclash.com. Please, if you have anything, I'm still pretty busy, but I could probably fit people in here and there. If you have anything, please let me know. I got Tommy D's place. So Tommy said his wife watches it every week, and every week he says to me, I haven't gotten the plug right once. So I'm going to try to do it today. It's 5 Stars Shopping by Tommy. It's 917-559-8264. Your shopping needs. Tommy's doing phenomenal. He said the business is rocking and rolling. He's got over 100 clients that I guess use his services on a regular basis, plus others. If you don't want to shop, if you want Tommy to help you, just hit him up on that number. Jay Cristiano at 844-442-7334. Cardinal Financial. Use the promo code 4215. Mention the podcast with me and Michael. If you're in the refinance or the purchase market, Jay will work super quick and super cheap for you. That's all I got, Mike.
All right. Basically, my buddy Jack, I Can Paint. Always check his stuff out. He's got a whole bunch of Marvel stuff on commission right now. Go over, check him out on Instagram. He's got some good stuff. Christine Meehan-Berg every week. Dylan's Restaurant in Forest Hills. She puts on a great show. Check her out at Funny Christine on Instagram. And Progmatic on Twitch. Check out Frank over there. And that's about it. We'll see you next week. Maybe they'll find this girl in Long Island. Who knows? Oh, next week. Man. Yeah, we got a whole, we didn't get to a lot of stuff. Oh, that South Carolina lawyer we never got to.
Oh, we got so much stuff for next week, Mike. Been a good show, though. I hope everybody enjoyed it, man. You guys all have a good weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah, we'll see. Oh, Bob Ross, the Bourdain stuff. Blah, blah, blah.
So many good stuff. The Ross thing, the Bourdain stuff, that was other stuff.
A whole bunch of stuff. Listen, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Peace out, everybody.